Can you guys keep a secret? I don't really decorate for Valentine's Day. I know. Some people really love to decorate for Valentine's Day. I just don't. It's not my thing. I don't like all of the bright pinks and reds. I just think that's kind of cartoonish looking. It's just not my style. But I do have some ideas for you guys today that I think you will enjoy. These are kind of vintage, rustic projects for Valentine's Day that will give you a little bit of that Valentine's color in your home decor. Nothing overwhelming or in your face. Thank you for stopping by Lavender and Lace today. I'm Alicia, and I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Please give this video a thumbs up, and let's get started with these projects. I got a great deal on this sign at Hobby Lobby. It was regularly priced for $24. I picked it up for $6. So be sure when you stop by the store that you look for these little orange price tags. Those are all of their clearance items. And this was a very large sign. This was a 10 by 36 inch sign. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do with this when I saw it at the store. So I painted this with one of my favorite colors that Waverly has in their chalk paint selection. This is the sandstone color. It's just a very neutral beige color. It's just one of my favorites to use for projects. So I did give this sign 2 coats. And then I designed this phrase in my Cricut design space. I just typed out 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 4 through 8. I thought these verses were perfect to use for a Valentine's project. And this is going to go in my living room. This is going to be the focal point for my picture wall. This will be at the center of all of those. And to get everything sized, spaced, lined up correctly for my sign, I wanted to show you guys what I did because this will cut bigger than the mats that I have since this sign is 36 inches long. So I just put in 2 separate rectangles the size of the mats that I will be having. So that was 11.5 and 23.5 for those mats. And then I just selected those rectangles and the text that was over each of those and did the slice option, and that just cut my text the way I needed it to be. And this will cut on 2 separate mats, and then all I will have to do on my sign is just line up all of my vinyl. That's just a trick that I recently learned when you are making bigger signs like that. And ideally, you will want to use 1 solid piece of vinyl when you're making bigger signs like this. I did not have any the day that I was working on this project, so I had to piece everything together. And I was just keeping my fingers crossed the whole time that this was cutting out that it would work well. And it did. I did have a couple of spots that it didn't cut out exactly the way that I wanted it to, but it wasn't anything that was too hard for me to fix. So once I had everything cut out, I do like to flip my mat over and just peel the mat off of the vinyl. That just keeps your vinyl from curling up on you. But be careful if you do that, because I have had a mat that broke when I was doing it this way. So just be careful when you are removing your mat from your vinyl. And since I did have 3 separate sections of vinyl that cut out, I had to piece everything together. And to help me do that, I just used some Scotch tape on the front of my vinyl to kind of hold that in place where I wanted it to go. And then I put some extra tape on the back. And I just did that with all of these sections that I had cut out. And then just removed that tape from the front of that because I did not want that to be stuck with the vinyl when I apply my transfer paper. And then I just covered my design with that transfer paper. Just made sure to burnish that down well so I didn't have any wrinkles in my transfer paper. Sometimes that happens when you are working with bigger designs. And since this is such a large design, I wanted to use parchment paper to help me get everything lined up. So I just left about an inch of that transfer paper hanging off from that parchment paper, and that just helped me line everything up. And my other piece there, I just put down with what I already had covered with transfer paper, just to make sure that it was going to be centered on my sign. And all I did then was, excuse me, getting ahead of myself, I actually cut off that bottom part of my design because it was not going to be centered with all of my text, and I wanted that to be centered on the bottom of my sign. So I just cut that piece off and just made sure everything was lined up once again, stuck that top part down and removed the parchment paper, and just used my large squeegee to get everything applied. And just carefully peeled back my transfer paper, and this vinyl stuck really well to this sign. This was the Starcraft vinyl, and I ordered that from 143vinyl.com. You can get a very large roll for a very good price. And then I just repeated that same process for all of the other parts of my design. And I did have some issues when my vinyl cut out. I think I need to replace my blade on my Cricut machine. Some of these did not cut out very well, and it was quite the headache and the process to get everything weeded. So I had to go back in with my fine tip Sharpie and just fill in some of those areas that either didn't cut out well or somehow got pulled up and lost in that vinyl. Sometimes that just happens when you're working with bigger things like this. And to kind of fill in that blank space on the bottom of my sign, I cut out just a couple of these leaf or twig branches and just applied those to the bottom of my sign, and this one is done and ready to go. I absolutely love how this one turned out. I think it is just very elegant and high end and has such a very inspirational message. What do you guys think about this one? Okay, y'all, if you're looking for a super simple Valentine's craft to do, this one is it. I just printed out some heart shapes as a template on computer paper and traced those out onto some cardboard that I had. This is just leftover cardboard from shipping boxes that I have on hand. I will keep those around for a little while until I decide that I'm not going to need them. I'm always getting packages, deliveries in the mail, so there's no shortage of cardboard around here. And then I just cut those out with my scissors. This project was before I had my nice little box cutter that I got from Amazon. If you have one of those, it makes your life easier when you are cutting out cardboard. Sadly, I did not have it for this project, so it did take me just a little while to get all of these shapes cut out. Once I had all of those cut out, I had just looked through my yarn stash. I crochet, so I always have plenty of yarn on hand to choose from for different projects like this. I just put down a small amount of hot glue to get my yarn started, and then I just wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrap some more until I had my heart shape completely covered. And I did change directions here and there to get the edges and the corners of my hearts completely covered. You can do any color that you want for this. This is a fun project that you could do with the kids, do for family night, and you would have these. You could actually give these as Valentines, but I will be sticking these in with some of my everyday decor just to give me that little bit of Valentine color. I looked through my wood stash that I had to see what I might have on hand that would work well to make a vintage riser. And I had this wooden plaque from the Dollar Tree and these wooden candlesticks or candle holders that you can get from Hobby Lobby. I had four of those, but I just needed three for this project. So I stained the candle holders with my antique wax from Waverly, and then I painted the entire surface, the top, the bottom, and the sides of my plaque with my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and I did give that a couple of coats. You could sand this if you wanted to because these wood pieces a lot of times have those rough edges. I just opted not to do that for this project. And then I just put down a light coat of Mod Podge just on the top surface of my wood plaque. And I used my little heat gun to dry that Mod Podge quickly so I could continue working on this project, not have any wait time for that to dry. And I recently ordered these gorgeous napkins from Amazon. These I think are already kind of antique and vintage, and they have 4 different designs on the same napkin. So I just picked out the one that I like the best for this project, and I did remove the extra ply that had, and I tried to line that up on my plaque where I wanted it to be and pick the design that I liked the best to be on the center of this, and just heated up my little Cricut mini press and went over that design, put down my Teflon sheet first and reheated that Mod Podge and applied my napkin and just went around the edge with my large jumbo fingernail file just to get a clean edge on that. And I had these really cute Valentine stamp designs in my stash. So I picked one that I thought would look kind of vintage and would go well with this project. And I just placed that where I wanted it to be to see if that would look okay before I actually ink that. And just applied my stamp design to the top of my riser. I am loving these colors so far. I think this looks just very feminine and delicate. And just to give this a little bit more of a vintage feel, I just went back in with my antique wax and did some distressing around all of the edges and the bottom of this riser as well. I wanted this to look like it was professional and completely done and everything nice and neat. And just to seal everything, I put down another light coat of Mod Podge. This will just protect your design, and I will be using this, so this will be a functional riser. So just to make sure I don't get any scratches or scuffs in that design, I wanted to seal that and protect it. And to get my legs on the bottom, I just put those down where I thought they would work the best and have this stable so it won't tip over or anything when I put something on it to display. And then I just took a pencil and just marked around there where I wanted these to go. So once I remove them to add the glue, I will know exactly where to place them back. And I used a combination of the wood glue super glue that you can find at the Dollar Tree and some hot glue just to attach the legs to my riser. And I just put some weight on each of those legs until that is set up. And this one is finished. This one is gorgeous. I love how this one looks, just the vintage feel that you get from that napkin and that design. I think this one would be a perfect addition to your bedroom. But what do you guys think about this one? I picked up a couple of different fabric patterns from Hobby Lobby. I picked ones that were kind of light pinks, and this other one was yellow with a pink design on it. I thought these would work well for a Valentine's project, and I love working with fabric, and I actually upgraded to the Cricut Maker a few years ago just so I could be able to cut out designs from fabric, because I like to work with that for my projects. So to get that ready, I cut down my pieces of fabric into 12 by, let's see, did I do 12 by 12 squares? I think I did. I did this project last week and I already forgot what size I cut these down to, but yes, I did cut them into 12 by 12 squares, and if you have the larger mats, you can always cut those bigger. And I found these heart shapes on Creative Fabrica. I will link that cut file for you in the description box. And I cut out a couple of different sizes, and while I was cutting these, I thought that I should probably mirror one of those hearts so they would fit together, but I didn't do that. I just cut them all out exactly the same, so of course I couldn't put the right sides together or the pretty sides of the fabric together. So for the back of my heart, it's just going to be the back of that fabric. That wasn't a very big deal for me. I was not going to waste all of that fabric that I had cut out. So I just glued those together with some fabric hot glue. And of course, I will display these with that pretty side to the front of this project. I just worked in sections with that hot glue, just put it in some smaller areas first and glued those two pieces together, and be sure that you leave an opening on your heart so that you can stuff them. And I use some of my polyfill stuffing. I always have this on hand. I just keep it on hand for projects like this, for anything that I want to stuff or give a little bit of definition to. So I just used a skewer to stuff all of my hearts, and I did keep my fabric hot glue hot and on hand because, as you can see there, this one kind of popped as I was stuffing that. Sometimes that hot glue just does not hold your fabric together. You may use regular hot glue and have better results with that, or you could sew these with your sewing machine or hand stitch these if you wanted to do that. And once I had all of my hearts stuffed, I used those bamboo skewers to put these on. These are going to be a heart bouquet. And I put that skewer to the back of the heart so you wouldn't be able to see that from the front. And I just trimmed those down to different heights so my bouquet would have a lot of interest and you would be able to see all of the hearts. And I just closed up that opening on the bottom with some more hot glue. And to embellish these, I just grabbed a couple of different kinds of ribbon, different colors that I had on hand, some jute twine, and I went through my stash of vintage buttons that I keep on hand as well. And I had also ordered some of those rusty safety pins from Amazon recently, so I just used those on a few of these hearts as well and just decorated them however I thought looked best. Feel free to use whatever that you have in your stash to decorate your hearts with. Make these your own. Do whatever colors or anything like that that you prefer. But I think that buttons with fabric are just a really great complement and makes your projects look very rustic and vintage. And to display these, I had a couple of the very small clay pots that you can get from Dollar Tree. I think I picked these up last year when they had all of their spring stuff out. And I gave these 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in that sandstone color. Since that is such a neutral color, I thought you would be able to kind of switch these bouquets out whenever I wanted to. And I found this burlap ribbon that I had in my stash. I got this from Amazon several years ago. It came with a lot of different patterns of this ribbon. If I can find that, I will link that for you guys as well. I thought this one was just a perfect match for this project because it has the hearts on that burlap ribbon, and I just glued that to the center of my clay pots with some hot glue. And I should be able to easily change out that burlap ribbon if I want to and use these clay pots for another season for another bouquet of sorts. And I had some of this styrofoam blocks as well in my stash, and I just cut down some smaller pieces and put those into my little clay pots. I didn't even glue that in, so it would be easy to take this out if I need to. And you can see there I did paint probably about 1 to 1.5 inches on the inside rim of my pot, just so that you wouldn't see any of that clay color. And then I just started placing all of my hearts. I did 2 of the larger and 2 of the smaller ones for each bouquet. And I did add some of my extra fabric pieces and just wrote some phrases, some Valentine sayings on just a couple of those. I thought that was a very cute touch for this project. Just stuck those down where I wanted to, and some of my sticks were a little bit longer, so I trimmed those down as needed. And just took some hot glue and added some Spanish moss to the tops of these just to cover up that styrofoam there. I love using Spanish moss for my projects. It just gives me that farmhouse vibe. And these rustic heart bouquets are finished and they are ready to add to the other Valentine DIYs that I have been working on. Let me know what you guys think about these. Would these be something that you make and add to your Valentine's decor? I found this gorgeous cardstock pack at Hobby Lobby, and I splurged a little bit for this one. It was $12.99 or $11.99, I think. And I actually picked this one up for spring projects, but I thought it would work really well for a Valentine's project. And it has absolutely beautiful designs in this. I think these are vintage and they go really great with all of the projects that I like to do. So I just flipped through that book and picked one that I liked for this design. And I had found this sign in the clearance section at Hobby Lobby probably last year, and I have just had it on hand. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with it, but I thought it would work great for this one. So I just measured the opening. It's kind of like a shadow box that has that deeper inset, and I just measured that out, and then I measured out my cardstock and just cut that down to size. And sometimes you don't get these perfect even if you do measure, and I did have a little bit of paper, extra paper on this, so I did have to trim that down just a little bit. So just keep that in mind when you're working with projects and doing the cardstock and the measuring and things like that. And to apply my cardstock to my sign, I use some of my Aleene's tacky glue and just a paintbrush to smooth that out over the surface. You could use your Elmer's glue stick if you wanted to, or the white Elmer's glue. Either of those would work well for this. And I just placed my cardstock down over that glue and just smoothed it out with my fingers. And I made sure that I pressed it firmly along all of the edges and in the corners so it wouldn't roll or pop up on me. And I had some extra pieces of that adhesive tile that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I love this design. And I also had one of these hearts that you can get from the Dollar Tree as well. I've had these since Valentine's last year. And I just traced that out over my tile and cut that out and got that ready to apply to my heart. And I just used that Aleene's tacky glue once again to apply that tile to the wood cutout. And I did let that dry for maybe 15-20 minutes or so before I added my paint. And this paint, it was so dried out. When I took the lid off and dried chunks of paint fell down into the bottle, but it still worked. If you have dried chalk paint, you can add a little bit of water to that and just thin it out. This one worked without me having to do that. And I did 2 coats over the top and the edges of my large heart. And I also took one of these small wooden blocks that you get in a pack from the Dollar Tree and painted all of the sides except for one with that pink. And that is the ballet slipper chalk paint from Waverly. And I just took a piece of sandpaper and just kind of roughed up the surface of that heart just so that detail would stand out and you would be able to see that a little bit better. And you guys know how I like to distress things for my project. This just gave that a little bit more of that rustic vibe. And I had just a smaller heart. This one came in a multi-pack. It had the natural wood, some pinks and reds in this pack. This came from the Dollar Tree as well, and I just did kind of a very light dry brushing with my Snow White chalk paint on that. And I grabbed my stamps and ink pad, and I just stamped out Romans 12 and 10 on this little heart. You could write that out if you wanted to. You could cut out a decal with your Cricut Joy, whatever that you want to do, whatever works best for you. And I just glued that small little wooden block onto the back of my larger heart and glued that heart kind of in the left hand corner of my sign. And then I just did a dry fit with that smaller heart, kind of to see where I wanted to glue that down. Just took some hot glue and glued that where I thought it would look best on my larger heart. And I thought the top of this sign was looking a little bit plain, so I grabbed just a piece of that extra fabric that I had on hand, and I just simply tied that in a knot and dovetailed the edges and kind of frayed the edges of that just to give that a little bit more texture and detail. And I did have to trim that down a couple of times until I was happy with the length that I had. You could also make a small pennant banner. I think that will be really cute on the top of this sign as well. And I just glued that in the top right hand corner of my sign. And I also put a little bit of extra glue on those edge pieces of my fabric just so they would kind of stay where I wanted them to. And that is it for this one. I love how this one turned out. I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I'm not a huge fan of the bright pinks, but I think this light pink one is absolutely gorgeous. This just gives me a little bit more of that pink Valentine's color. Let me know what you guys think about this one. That wraps up these Valentine DIYs. I hope you guys enjoyed these projects. And I know I said I don't decorate for Valentine's Day, but I really like these. So I think they will be displayed in my home this year. And they just give me that perfect touch of Valentine's. I would love to know which of these projects is your favorite. And I would also love to know, do you decorate for Valentine's Day? Thank you for watching today. Please give this video a thumbs up and I will see you guys in the next one.